So I'm like a lot of people in high school because I like to play sports, right? I play soccer. I've been playing soccer since I was 3 years old, and I've been all along the college recruiting process since I've entered high school. So what that means is that I tour the schools, I talk to the coaches, and I play with the Division I players all while I play on these nationally recognized teams and these nationally recognized tournaments, and so it's great. But none of that really mattered when the coach of one of my old travel teams actually managed to get me banned from playing high school. And what's crazy about that is that he actually ranked me as the best player on his team, that is, before he started a fight with me and then told me that I should just quit because I didn't deserve to be there. So I did quit. I'm petty, I quit. And that turned out to be a really awful idea because he was buddies with the high school coach, and I didn't even realize that. And then soon enough, all those people that were ranked below me took all the spots on the JV team, and I was devastated. You know, with nowhere to go, I was depressed, and I figured I'd just cut soccer out of my life for good. But my parents, fortunately enough, assisted me in finding other options, and then within that year, I was playing soccer for my current club team, where we tour all over the East Coast and play in tournaments. On club teams, the way it works, it's more fair because coaches only judge you based off of your skill level. There are no outside factors involved except for one thing, which is the admission fee, which is equal because everyone pays the same amount. But it still pains me a lot to think that I was going to cut something that continues to be a source of well-being. I was going to cut it out of my life for good. But it also calls a lot of attention to the fact that other people aren't as lucky. You know, kids are dropping out of high school sports like flies, and then the National Federation of State High School Associations says the number of kids playing high school sports has gone from 7.98 million to 7.93 million. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 50,000 kids quitting. That is 4,545 soccer teams. That's 1,000 entire football teams, and that is 10,000 basketball teams. So it's a lot, and you can bet that a lot of other kids are being cheated out and not even realizing it. And it really comes down to two things. It comes down to the coach and it comes down to the parents. And just because I got cheated out by a coach doesn't mean that everyone's going to get cheated out by a coach. And as a parent of a student athlete, or as a student athlete yourself, it's really important to recognize these kinds of situations and then figure out where to go or what to do, because it's really important that you get an equal playing opportunity. But if we are talking about the coaches, there are tons of ways for coaches to make joining a team unfair. So coaches can monitor their own conflicts of interest. So what that means is that the institutions certifying them do not hold them accountable for nepotism or any sort of biased judgment. So that means a parent can really only hope that a coach is coaching fairly. So a good example is, we'll say coach's son is a starter on the team or is even playing on the team when there are other people that are way more dedicated and way more talented. And in my case, it's when people were coming up to me saying, why didn't you come to practice? Not even realizing I didn't make the team. And so this is a super common thing amongst the local athletic community, especially in early ages, because a lot of times in very early ages, coaches are really only coaching because their kid is playing said sport, because their kid is on the team. And the stakes continue to raise in high school with the opportunity of college scholarships. And then all of a sudden, these high financial benefits are something that people want to capitalize on. So what they'll do is they'll take these kids and they'll stick them on the front lines, and then they'll hope that enough exposure will grant them a college scholarship. But really what this does is it takes all of these other kids with talent and all these other kids with even more dedication, and it keeps them at the bottom of this ladder, and there's no way of climbing back up. And the same thing works for parents who are friends with the coach and people that have connections inside the school. And I'm sorry. And so here's where it gets worse. I'm just flipping because I got a quote later. And so I want you to imagine that you are being discriminated against by your high school coach, right? They have player preferences, you're not one of them. Super unfortunate. And so your family decides, okay, we're going to go elsewhere, we're going to look in the club scene where things are a little bit more fair. And then you get there, but you realize that the cost of travel, the cost of even being on a team, it's all way out of the budget. And then you realize that college recruiting camps, also known as ID camps, they follow suit. Some of them are upwards of $500, and they don't even really guarantee you a spot on the team. So with this all being too much money, there's not really anywhere to go. And so you stay on your team, your high school team, and just hope that one day the coach will give you some playing time, and that one day, at the same time, magically a college scout will be there and they'll scout you out and they'll call you up and you get on a team. And that's what makes this all so much worse. The fact that, a lot of kids from low-income families who can't afford the opportunity to play on teams other than teams that are free or teams that aren't as much money as club, they'll never get the opportunity to show themselves off. And it's extremely unfortunate, and it makes sense that all of a sudden this study by the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation in 2017 says that the number of students receiving athletic scholarships that are from low-income families has gone from 28% to less than 14%. And so then that also brings us to the second negative impact thing that can really also affect all of these benefits and stuff, and that's the parents, right? Parents can put their kids on teams, but parents can also leverage everything they have in order to ensure the success of their child. So, for example, right, being on the PTA, the Board of Education, or even being a faculty member, especially in a time when, being on the team is free, and times when, you can talk to coaches, connections matter a lot. And it's all behind the scenes, so you don't really realize it. And, even if you're on the team and you make it on the team, there will always be parents on the sidelines screaming at you, screaming at other people on your team to be better, right? And so, as a coach, super difficult to deal with this kind of thing, right? It kind of takes away from the integrity of your job. And so that kind of leads to one thing, and that's resignation. So there's this coach down in Texas, right? Her name is Corey Clemens, and she teaches a volleyball team. Her girls had a very successful 33-14 season. They lost regional semifinals, but very, very good couple of months. And she resigned, actually, and she released the following statement when she did. She said, and I quote, "I cannot and will not compromise the integrity of my decisions based on a parent's political pressure or position. I believe strongly in the value of athletics, that being a part of a team is a privilege and playing time is earned." So, I've talked a lot about, bad coaches, but sometimes it's not always bad coaches. Sometimes coaches are fair in their decision, and, playing time is earned to those who are the most dedicated and the most talented, and sometimes also with a lot of kids to keep up with, coaches become a little short-sighted. But, when a parent chooses to fight their kid's battle for them, that kid will never learn to face the adversity of playing a high school sport. And they'll never learn to overcome the challenges and learn the perseverance of fixing these issues that maybe are actually justified because maybe, said child or said athlete is lacking in stamina, or they're lacking in being coachable or something like that. And so there's a lot of information, right? And so it's super important to be able to recognize these kinds of things. So obviously, if there's an issue with the coaches, an issue with the school, and the politics inside the school, there's no way to be able to fix that, because what's set is kind of set in stone. But, there are always places for athletes to flourish. So there are always different teams, different recreational teams, affordable teams, and there's always the social media. There's always, connecting with coaches on free apps and websites and posting your highlight reels online to get as much attention as possible. As a parent, it's always really important to support those kinds of things, because, if your kid is, we'll say, in a situation where the coach's actions are justified, and, the kid is the student, they're lacking in endurance or technical ability or whatever else, then you need to be there to cheer them on. There's no fixing these issues for them. You can't run for them. You can't practice for them. So it's important to make sure that your kid is really putting the effort in, perseverance and all these kinds of things. It's a really good character trait to have, not just in athletics, but also in all sorts of social and working environments. It's something that's very important to learn later on in life as well. But the most important thing is also, when something like this is happening, to not give up. It's important to persevere, and it's important to be the one with the last laugh, no matter what, and to always make yourself the star player.